Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Spy Kids Armageddon, starring Connor Esterson, Everly Carganilla, forgive me if I said that wrong, Zachary Levi, Gina Rodriguez, Billy Magnuson, and G.J. Cortrona, directed by Robert Rodriguez. And this movie is available on Netflix, so before you see this review, watch the movie first and go to the review after, because I'm going to spoil this thing like crazy. So let's get into it. We open with the one day earlier when Armageddon is about to blast off, when Tony Tango Torres, played by Connor Esterson, and his sister Patty, played by Everly Corignella, or Nyla, I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, please forgive me, try to stop Armageddon from exploding, and they're unsuccessful. They get trapped as we get to introduced to their father, Terrence, played by Zachary Levi, and Nora, played by Gina Rodriguez. And these characters are overwhelmingly terrible, as the parents are not interesting, and the kids were annoying me half to death. Terrence and Nora have an anniversary of telling Tony and Patty they're spies, and Terrence seems forgetful as they call Devlin, played by DJ Cotrona, this time as he worked with Zachary Levi before in Shazam. They get an assignment to turn down Armageddon by a video game Tony plays called High Score. And as he beats a kid from school to get the video game from Ray the King Kingston, played by Billy Magnuson, and he asks for help from Patty to make him play the game behind the parents' back and in the middle of the night, which is completely cheating. And the movie cheats with these terrible characters while Tony and Patty sneak by the parents, and the floor squeaks loudly to the point they could have heard them as Devlin tells Terrence and Nora to protect the code to Armageddon, and the kids play the game loudly to the point they could have heard it. And what a horrible family. I mean, while Tony does things behind the parents' back, and Terrence wants to restrict them on video games, and Nora gives the sleeper kiss to Terrence, and she tries to delete the Armageddon, and it was stolen under their hands, and the cinematography is bad in this movie. Absolutely bad. While Zachary Levi and Gina Rodriguez look miserable being in this movie, and the effects are the worst they've been in any movie. The kids are somehow beating the game in order to escape, and turn on the machines and cars that takes them to a safe house and have a chase sequence, which is pretentious, as does the action sequences, as Tony is led to believe Terrence and Nora are spies, and Patty says, "You think?" And I was saying the same thing, as these movies are called Spy Kids to begin with, for goodness sakes. Tony and Patty get to the safe house, and Tony falls for a trap in the safe house and learns how to be spies with the slapstick being super dumb. In this scene, like Tony getting hit quite a few times, that was obviously super dumb. Terrence and Nora get trapped and captured and taken to the king himself, and they try to talk with him, and the dialogue was very cringeworthy, and he demands if he wins to fix the Armageddon code, and they fight the king with swords and easily defeats Terrence and learns Tony and Patty have the key to Armageddon, and Nora ends up losing the fight. And I just don't care, as this movie is already a dumb movie as it is. Tony and Patty, get spy fashion clothes and work on being the best spies as they can. And they find something important, as it's a robot bug named Bronson. And they read the Being a Spy book that is too small for me, I would say. And Patty thinks about saving the parents so they can stop Armageddon, until a few people come to the safe house, saying they're the parents' co-workers, but they don't trust them, and the kids beat them up, and Bronson helps them find a way out, and the OSS led by Devlin, and take them to the OSS and ask them to play the video games, and they win it better than the adults do. And it turns on the internet, and Devlin learns Patty has half of the key to the Armageddon code, and Tony and Patty show the bad guy is the king himself, and they find Nora, and the bad guys from the game come into the fight the OSS, and this plot makes no sense. Devlin, like an idiot, gives half the code to the giant bad guy, and half the code and almost escape, until Tony and Patty go after them as a boat and fly it as a plane, and it disguises to switch to a plane, and they get to the king's palace while Terrence and Nora talk about what Tony did as far as the reason why he ends up putting the code together, and not Terrence. As the end of the day, as at the end of the scene, it was the king who cracked the code, and how he lost the video game privileges, and I'm getting bored at this point. Tony and Patty see the king and his evil robots, and they attack as they escape and find Terrence and Nora, and Armageddon is combined, and the parents have a plan to go Operation Fireball, and they explain what they did in time to stop a bad guy, and Patty advises to ask nicely, which unfortunately doesn't always work, and the parents split up while the kids go and stop Armageddon, and we go right back to where we started, and they get to the central computer, and Tony tries to break the Armageddon code, and unsuccessful, and the king comes in and explains his father Vargas, whom I'm not too familiar with, and explains his villain plot, which is preposterous as it is. The parents almost lose the fight, but they played the game, and Patty has an idea of how Tony can beat the game, and they have 10 minutes to beat the game fair and square by playing as their favorite characters in the game and first beat up the bad guys, and Patty gets upgraded there, and Tony fights the king as he plays as himself, while Patty, Terrence, and Nora beat the Heck Knight and perform Operation Fireball in a way Patty plays it, and makes the Heck Knight follow Patty, and while Tony almost loses the game as Terrence gets Tony a lower health, and the king makes it to 0 health bar, and Tony receives a one-hit medal and beats the king, and he crowns Tony as the new game and says shut down Armageddon, and it is shut down. And they come back to life, and the king thanks Tony for giving him some goodness, and the OSS almost arrests the king, but they convince him to play his own game, as Terrence and Nora almost quit, and makes the honest people 6 months later, and they're back in the OSS becoming the Spy Kids, and the climax was, at the end of the day, preposterous. As this may be the worst Spy Kids movie yet to date, so please don't make any more whatever you do. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 1.3 out of 10. I don't like any of the characters at all, as they look absolutely miserable for being in this movie, and the cinematography looks bad, as does the effects look the worst in any of the movies. The action scenes are pretentious in this movie, as is the chase sequence between the kids and the bad guys, and the humor with slapstick was dumb, as this is a dumb movie that was miserable to watch. This is beyond the worst Spy Kids movie with some lines that are cringeworthy. I just don't care for the series, and I don't recommend this series as well as this movie, so this is a non-recommendation for this movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for Spy Kids, and until, I don't know if they'll ever make another one, but let's see if Judy and Carmen are back for the next one.